Brennan, and you're listening to the Astrology Podcast. In this episode of Astrologer, Austin Coppock is joining me, and we're going to be looking at the astrological forecast for July of 2025. Hey, Austin, welcome back.
Hey, Chris, how are you doing?
Good. It's been a slow news month since I last saw you a couple months ago. We'll see if we can find something to talk about at some point in the first part of this episode, where we're going to spend the first hour talking about news and events since our last forecast episode a month ago. In the first hour or so of this episode, then in the second half, we're going to jump forward and do a deep dive into the astrology of July. So before we get there, I want to do a quick overview of the month, the astrology that we're going to be talking about. And of course, as always, there's going to be timestamps in the description below this video on YouTube or on the astrologerpodcast.com website if you want to jump forward to the deep dive forecast section right from the beginning. All right, so let's jump right into looking at a quick preview of the astrology of July. So here's the planetary aspects calendar, which shows different alignments and when they peak during the course of this month. This is designed by Madeline DeCoates of honeycomb.co, and it really helps to illustrate some of the different aspects and when they go exact during the course of the month. This month we get our first closest pass within a degree of Saturn conjunct Neptune, which is really going to peak in July, especially with both planets stationing in the sign of Aries, less than a degree from each other. We also have Uranus returning to Gemini for the first time in 80 years since the 1940s, which has big implications, especially for the United States, since the U.S. was born with Uranus in Gemini, and we'll talk about that, especially since Uranus goes into Gemini on July 7th. We also have Uranus, which goes into Gemini, very closely trining Pluto, and moving within 1 degree of completing that trine this year. That starts getting very close this month when Uranus goes into Gemini. Finally, the most important aspect out of all of those is probably the Mercury retrograde, which stations retrograde on July 17th and will be retrograde for 3 weeks. So we'll be talking about that a bit in this episode later on. And finally, here's the planetary alignments calendar, which shows some of the different ingresses and lunations and other things this month. So very briefly, on July 4th, we have Neptune stationing retrograde in the sign of Aries and Venus ingressing into the sign of Gemini. A few days later, Uranus moves into Gemini on the 7th. There's a full moon in Capricorn on the 10th. Saturn stations retrograde in Aries for the first time on the 13th. That week, Saturn and Neptune get within less than a degree in the closest pass that they're going to get this year. Then Mercury stations retrograde on the 17th and 18th. The Sun goes into Leo on the 22nd. Venus squares Mars the next day on the 23rd. There's a new moon in Leo that's kind of tough because it's opposite Pluto on the 24th. Venus enters Cancer, where it starts heading towards Jupiter on the 30th. And then Mercury reaches the halfway point of its retrograde cycle at the Cazimi on the very last day of the month on July 31st. So that is some of the astrology that we're going to be talking about later in the second half of this episode. So Austin, welcome back. You decided to take last month off to work on writing your book, but thanks for coming back and joining me today.
Oh, my pleasure. And thank you to everyone who was so kind about my absence. Several chapters got long, and I didn't have to pivot to thinking about history in the present or the unfolding history of the present. You'd agree that not only world events, but figuring out what to say about them as well as their trajectory eats up a lot of time and energy. And so I was able to direct those savings to the book, which is not done yet, but huge progress got made and we got some good momentum. It's getting there.
Good. Well, yeah, I don't know about this correlation yet, but a year ago you took a month off, and that was the first time that Iran shot missiles at Israel, and then this month there were also some exchanges, so I don't want to say that you're causing this to happen, but you're not causing it to happen at the same time.
What you're saying, Chris, is that my presence on this podcast is a potent power for world peace. That I might be just holding everything together by being on the internet.
Yeah.
That's the theory.
It's like that piece of like gum somewhere in a very complex machine that's like holding together some very crucial part that nobody knows about. All right, so it was a big, crazy month, particularly just the week or two that the Mars-Uranus square came into alignment, and a bunch of stuff happened. So this month, there's a lot of new stuff happening at different points in the month, but I'm really going to focus on what happened during that 1 or 2 week period when Mars was squaring Uranus, because the most consequential stuff largely took place around the time of that alignment. So here's a diagram that Madeline from honeycomb.co designed for me to demonstrate the Mars-Uranus square with a 3-degree orb. And last month in the forecast that Lisa and I did, we talked about this aspect and how it went exact on the 14th and 15th. But in terms of the ranges of intensity, there was the 1 degree range, which happened from June 13th through the 17th. There was also this 3-degree range, which is the most ancient orb that was used in Hellenistic astrology, and that expanded it to June 9th through the 21st. And that really did seem to be the broader range for when this aspect was very intense. It was also conjunct with the fixed star Regulus at the same time, which brought an additional factor that we'll talk about here in just a little bit. But in the forecast last month, we talked about and described the Mars-Uranus square, and some of the things that we said to describe it was, quote, a tense, combative, disruptive, and even potentially violent energy. Later we said a violent act that comes out of left field unexpectedly. We also used the words combustible, explosive, and explosions, and unexpected disruptions. So things just went crazy in multiple different ways throughout that period, but especially around the weekend that it went exact. And we talked a bit in the last forecast a month ago about how noting it was also hitting Trump's chart in a very important way, because it would be conjoining his Mars and especially his ascendant during that time. But one of the things that we didn't realize when we gave our forecast and mentioned that it would be important to him personally is I didn't realize that his birthday was happening that weekend, and we didn't realize that the military parade was scheduled for that weekend along with the protests. So it's kind of funny looking at that forecast and the things that we actually said and predicted, realizing that we weren't just saying some of those things because we knew some of that stuff was already scheduled, but just purely based on astrology. So here's a short list of the stuff that happened really close to the Mars-Uranus conjunction square that weekend. So the first thing is that Israel launched a surprise attack on Iran on June 12th/13th. It was late on the 12th here in the U.S. when we heard about it. It was already June 13th when the attack was actually launched. Then the next day, we all woke up too early in the morning on June 14th that there had been some political assassinations that had taken place where Democratic politicians had been murdered by this masked guy that was wearing this bizarre mask in this really violent killing. Then later that day, most of the news was dominated by the No Kings protests on June 14th, which were protests against Donald Trump and against the military parade that he ended up holding later that day, starting in the evening, when he had a military parade in Washington, D.C. with like tanks rolling down the street in D.C. Supposedly to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the Army, but also because it was his birthday. He'd been trying to hold a military parade for quite some time, for several years now. So then after that, there was this tension about whether the U.S. would bomb Iran and fully join what Israel was doing for days, and that eventually culminated on June 21st when the U.S. did bomb Iran and especially some of the nuclear sites there. And then bizarrely, just 2 days later, right on the Jupiter cazimi, when the sun conjoined Jupiter, Trump announced a ceasefire, and there was some sort of limited, currently theoretically holding a ceasefire, although we'll see how that goes. So it was truly an insane weekend just with those events alone, it was all centered on this Mars Uranus square, which was pretty crazy. Were you tracking all this at the time, Austin?
Yeah, I was actually, I was working on Deakin's book, and I took the opportunity during that period to take another look at the third decan of Leo, which in both the primary systems is ruled by Mars. And so Mars in the third decan of Leo, where all of this happened, was like you should see that decan's full power unlocked by that point being there. And so I was tripping out. Trump also has that natively. As I wrote in the first edition and expanded on the second, that decan is about literally gathering.
What the fuck is this?
Or gathering armies together,
It was perfect.
rousing the aggressive animal spirits, either within animals or within humans, but gathering together a force and making a display. The symbol I abbreviated with in the first edition was the banner. It's like the power to gather and mobilize through the use of emblems, right? And it's a very, how should I say, morally ambivalent decan. Because it's usually gathered together a large and destructive force and then motivated them. So there's more to that, but I was tripping out all of the Leo Mars interactions. It's something I noted in 2015 when Trump was running for the presidency and he said the NATO chart with that Mars in its own and in the Senate. And with the power to gather together this tribal town, I thought that was kind of a hot take on his ability to gather together for rallies, which much talked about and very large at the time. So yeah, I was tripping out on Mars and the 3.
For sure. I want to talk more about that and talk about Regulus. Let's get into the first story, because I wanted to drill down on each of these stories individually.
They each deserve their own space.
Yeah, so the first one I want to talk about primarily is Iran, where
Good job, by the way. Good job with Iran.
We've been
talking about Iran. We've been held fast to that for, I don't know, a year, or at least 9 months.
Yeah, the predictions about Iran is something that I was abnormally certain about over the past year and got increasingly certain about, and that you also very strongly started feeling last year as well. So that was something that we were usually we like to be a little bit more careful, especially about things that big and that weighty predictions. But with that one, we were both pretty adamant and repeated it a bunch. So let me set up the premise first.
Yeah.
So Israel launched a surprise attack on Iran on June 13th, and they called it Operation Rising Lion. And I thought this was really striking because we've seen lion symbolism come up at least 3 different places over the past month. In the last forecast, we talked about how with Mars transiting Leo, the Pope chose the name Leo, which means the lion, just last month. Also, that Minnesota assassin had a company that was called the Red Lion Group. And then the same exact weekend, this Operation Rising Lion was like the code name for Israel's surprise attack on Iran. And this seemed connected also with how Mars was not just in the late Leo, but was also conjoining the fixed star Regulus in the sky, which is the heart of the lion in the constellation Leo. And it was actually something where Mars wasn't just aligning.
No way. Thank you, brother. What? Come on, man. Thanks, bro.
That was one of the other major
What's up, man? Dude, 450s? That's awesome, man. What's up, brother? I rated you with one viewer. I rated with one. It's like I wasn't even streaming at all. Thanks, man. Thanks, buddy.
This is more zoomed in and a little bit brighter because it was taken using a telescope, but you could actually see in this.
Yo, what's up, Red Screens? What's up, Red Screen? Thanks, man. Thanks, brothers. Thanks, guys. We got 140 again today.
a several day
We duped
period just
140
after
on a
sunset, and you could
forced
go out and
mainframe,
visually, like, see them each
grenade,
night.
exhaust
This photo was
bay,
taken June 16th by
and
Gygesz
run around the drone.
virtual telescope.
Pretty cookie cutter.
So shout out to them. But this was incredibly visually striking also because
Yo, thanks, Jimmy.
Trump himself was born.
Yeah, so we duped 140 today. I mean, I knew I'm trying to run through the console and run through the drone, but I'm losing like 4 bars of health doing that.
That was a huge sort of fixed start.
It's too much.
So, setting up the game premise, Israel did several things. It attacked the nuclear sites in Iran. It also assassinated several high-level
I think it's 75.
officials, and it also shot down a lot of defenses, among
Thanks, man.
a bunch of other things.
Yeah.
So, after that, immediately, Iran
139 is definitely, like, I've duped, I think I have 3 or 4 140s. But I always knew each one was 140. I wasn't ever heartbroken. I knew it. Every run, I'm like, this is not it. And it wasn't.
We've been talking about and predicting
Yeah.
an attack on Iran and an escalation in the conflict.
Just survival is just so low.
For over a year now, I was represented the fulfillment of that. And it actually, I was joking about that earlier in this episode, but that prediction originated with the eclipse
Yeah, dude, yo.
that happened 1
There's some
year
fucking
ago,
epic
March and April
streams going on now. Retro going to for 49. Kratos going for 20. Kratos is so close to 20. It's crazy, man.
High-ranking Iranians, and then
Like, it's crazy.
the very first time
It's exciting.
launched missiles directly at
Truer Faith so close to 50.
forecast episode I did in April of 2024. After that, I
And
said,
Ace too, so
this
close
is
to
one of
50.
those things that seems minor right now, but I think this is an element of something that could become more significant in the future. We'll look back on this in retrospect and realize
Yeah.
that this was the starting point. And then I said,
I believe it. That's what I mean.
6 months in the next
I think most of my PBs have full health going after the pause, I think.
it's going somewhere. So then we checked in again 6 months later. There was
June
another
was
eclipse
over.
season, and right on one of those eclipses,
Dude, you gotta, dude, 49, dude, you gotta keep going, man. I mean, I'm not,
right on one of those
I don't have the same grinding effort as you, but I think you gotta keep going, man.
launched missiles at Israel again.
For 49, that's legendary, man.
So there was another continuation of this like open conflict in that eclipse season.
Yo,
And that's
what
the point
is
where I
up,
started thinking this was gonna escalate even further.
Chinese Chach? Chinese Chach, what's up? I do play Perfect Dark. I do from time to time. I have my Perfect Dark cart right here. Here it is. You guys want something crazy?
I was just looking for other angles.
So this is the 07. This is like the OG one. Check it out. Signed by Perfect Ace himself. Isn't it amazing?
Mars was on the very degree of horizon, which was such a strong confirmation. And the only other time
Yeah, I play Perfect Dark.
that happened,
I'm trying to convince Jimmy really to add the LOL Epic, yeah. Swag. It's funny. Oh man, but I was convincing him to add the challenges 1 to 30 in the side leagues.
Sure seems like
Because that'd be amazing. At the end of the stream, I played some challenges at the end of last stream. I might do that again this stream, but yeah, I play Perfect Dark. I speedrun Perfect Dark. I have 109 on the agent infiltration with the out of bounds,
that was a big
which is like 65 points or something.
Yeah. So and we continued talking about it on several forecast episodes, including the year ahead forecast. And then eventually,
Yeah, I have like a Villa Secret Agent completion. I have a Pelagic 2 PA completion with video. Pelagic 2 SA completion. I think SA Pelagic 2 SA 236, Pelagic PA 301. They're not like very. That's not really good times, but it's proof of concept. You know what I mean?
this year we were having a bunch of
I still can't get a Villa PA speedrun completion. I can't get the... I always throw the laptop gun in the wrong place. I can never get the snipers to complete.
Jupiter moving from Gemini into Cancer, and an eclipse having just taken place in Aries, and then starting to move into the subsequent signs of crisis.
Nearly got 260 pointers in half a month. Oh wow, crazy.
Just further emphasized to me that this is
That's crazy. No, dude, like it's pretty hard, man. It's hard to get unless you're like the legend, like red screens, or unless you learn the out of bounds infiltration.
Then we got to March and April, because that was our target time frame that we thought that the escalation was going to happen.
Yeah, I was playing Challenge 18 with Elvis Sim and Maya Sim. I think Elvis is a perfect or a dark sim, and I think Maya Sim is a hard sim. King in the Hill, in the Villa. Oh wow, Villa Agent. You know what I think you'd like? I think you'd like Villa Secret Agent, because Villa Secret Agent, you have to take out the snipers, but you use the CMP. It's really fun. So you're like sniping guys with the CMP. It's really cool.
Culminated around the time of the Aries eclipse, where it seemed like Iran realized that Trump was getting ready to strike, and they suddenly relented and wrote them a letter back saying they open negotiations, and then appeared to negotiations
nice.
in April.
Oh wow, insane.
What's a little interesting is you and I were a little surprised that the escalation didn't happen, and that we were expecting in March and April, but then at that point...
Yo, Perfect Days, what's up, man?
And one of the last statements I made...
Legend, bro.
What's
up, man?
The Saturn ingress into Aries.
My 109 flash, yeah, man, it is.
Aries was really important.
That 109 is safe.
Both because its leader was born on a solar eclipse in Aries, as well as the country itself has Aries in its sort of country signature, as well as its...
Angar's just a tad tankier, yeah.
The chart for the government of Iran since 1979, once it was established after the revolution.
Oh, Ace, what do you think? What do you think about Jimmy Billy? I was gonna write a forum post, but I haven't joined the side leagues. Have you ever played the challenges 1 to 30 in the combat simulator? Because I'm suggesting that you should add that as a part of the side league somehow, if you can. And it's cool because it has RNG spawn points. So it's not like you just follow a set game rule play every time, because you pass away and you spawn. Guards, the enemy passes away and spawns, right? You can get different rallies. Remember watching Boston? Nice. You have, yeah, nice. That'd be a nice suggestion. Yeah, I think it'd be good, man. And it has co-op. It has co-op with up to 4 players, dude. 4-player co-op. If the N64 doesn't explode. It'd be great for like meets and stuff. Then again, I haven't added my account yet. I'm paranoid to add my Google account. Sorry, I'm starting to make that public again. Jimmy Billy, but I'm just explaining. Last couple of challenges, yeah. Challenge 30, King of the Hill, Pistols. I think against 2 hard sims, maybe one is a dark.
Is in Iran's first house, and is near Regulus, and in retrospect is exactly
nice.
The next date to look at. And I'll stand by the Mars Saturn position in August as a ship pops off day.
Yeah, man, the RNG, just even like the meat sim partner or the easy sim partner you have, they can just act clutch sometimes.
Well, one of the things about March that I realized in retrospect is that probably was
the duel. Cool, dude. Well, I have a video from like a few years ago for Challenge 18, the Elvis Sim and Maya Sim, King of the Hill with tranquilizers in the villa with the laptop gun.
the U.S.
And Shield.
bombed the Houthis in Yemen.
And Phoenix.
Now, in retrospect to this, we realized that was actually a precursor to attacking Iran, as they basically wanted to take out the last proxy so that the Houthis wouldn't immediately also be sending missiles.
Details, yeah, just 30 challenges, like levels, like 30 levels, 30 challenges, and
funny thing about that, remember that Mercury retrograde would happen
4 categories within each level: 1 player, 2 player co-op, 3 player co-op, 4 player co-op.
Immediately when that was leaked, I was wondering if any references to an Iran attack were in that, and I think they just lucked out basically that they were probably planning at that point.
Online mode 0 player, interesting. Interesting, Chinese. It is 30 challenges, but you can do, yeah. Oh, but dude, but would that not promote meets and people playing it at meets? I think it's really cool.
Guess or infer, I think, in retrospect, that we already suspected.
True.
That was probably some sort of like covert operation that was like a precursor to this.
Yeah, because there was some ambivalence.
Single player ranks, yeah.
Where it looked shady, but there wasn't enough evidence to convict.
For sure.
Yeah. So, anyway, so that ended up coming together. For this, just in terms of the astrology being pretty striking.
That'd be epic. That would be epic.
You know, on top of this also layers together potentially a lot of predictions of astrologers that we've been talking about for years now, which is this is also, we're right on the cusp of the Uranus return.
Nope, nothing's stopping you, man.
Uranus going into Gemini soon, and this Mars-Uranus square just before Uranus.
Just challenge 1, challenge 2, challenge 3.
Some of what that's
no names.
And I did full episodes on that back in 2013, and I went back and listened to it. It ends with like Nick Gygesz talking about a war starting in 2025 when this ingress takes place, and then we also had a larger discussion in 2022. So that's something we'll talk about more later this episode because that ingress is starting in
Thanks, guys.
But in terms of future
that'd be fun.
Dates with respect to this, I do think the Uranus ingress into Gemini is really important because it's setting up
mouse and keyboard for emulator, probably. Yeah, you could probably turn around faster. You can't really turn around very quickly.
In its history, which the last 3 times
Click a logo, or is rather.
Revolutionary War, the Civil War, and World War II. So
for sure, man. No stress, dude.
It's the precedent that is either for a major external conflict or a major internal conflict.
That's what I mean. Like I haven't submitted a run. I have challenge 18.
Why not both maybe?
Right. Actually, I'll be honest. I skunked them. I think it was like 10-0. I don't know how fast it was.
Conflict that may evolve over the next several years, the next 7 years, basically. I know you're
I have the
still
video.
have your eye
It's on YouTube.
closely on that Mars-Saturn opposition that goes exact in August, right?
Yeah, that is. I think that's about as hot as it gets this year. And it's not just that it's a Mars-Saturn opposition.
It's just the RNG spawn points is massive.
It's that it's Mars opposite the Saturn-Neptune conjunction.
It's mad, like it's huge.
And it's Mars in an almost perfect trine with a newly ingressed Uranus and Gemini. Right, so it's a very harmonious, mutually aspect. It's the first aspect that Mars, perfect aspect that Mars would make with the universe, right? So it's the first Mars.
Yo, Ninja Lifestyle, what's up, brother? Thanks, man. Yo, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate you. B-Day 2. Yo, thanks, man. What's up, brother? Fucking legend ninja, dude.
If you look at the chart, it looks like a bow and arrow with.
Can use cheats for the challenges. Challenges 1 slow-mo a thing. I don't know. I don't think so.
Things move out of alignment in September, and we get back to Saturn, Neptune, and Pisces problems rather than Saturn, Neptune, and Aries.
No, I don't think you can use cheats.
Looking for that sort of looking hard at that first half of August configuration. isolation with more setting.
Yeah, some of the challenges did have that.
For me, one of the next things that we can also besides is eclipse season.
That one's not very good. The other ones, some are really good. Some are really hard too.
And even though we understood how the Ares Libra eclipse series was super tied in with Israel and Iran, especially because of their various reasons, there have been already some precedent where escalations have been happening in this new series that's shifted to Pisces and Virgo. And so I do have a question of whether there's continuation escalations of those pieces. Because, for example, like I said,
but they're so good.
Last fall, the Lebanon pager attack, the Hezbollah pager attack happened right on
Aries
in Virgo, or sorry, this was Pisces actually. And then in March, the U.S. bombing Yemen and the Houthis was right on the eclipse in Virgo. So some sort of continuation and escalation of some of those themes to me seems likely in the September timeframe also.
Yeah, and maybe it'll be likely those will be back to back to conflict with Iran's proxies or allied forces rather than direct conflict with Iran, which might need to wait for 2026.
Cool, man. Yeah, buddy, I think it'd be good.
Alright, so that is the core thing I wanted to do talking about Iran. I wanted to move on and talk about some of the other crazy stuff that happened that weekend and sort of group them all together, which is like the No Kings protests, the military parade, and the assassinations. So June 14th was Trump's birthday, where he turned 79 years old, and he scheduled a military parade for that day. And like I said, it was ostensibly to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the creation of the Army, which I looked up the date, and the creation date was supposed to be June 14th, 1775. What was interesting about that is that Mars was in Virgo at that time, just coming off of a retrograde where it had stationed direct in late Leo.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so this actually was an interesting occurrence of that, just coming off of a retrograde in Leo 250 years later. So for Trump's birthday, 79 years old is actually the Babylonian Bullier period for Mars. And so this is an extremely close recurrence of
Yo, Ninja. Nice, man. It's cool, dude. Yeah, I like the fighter games, fighter jet games. Back in the day, I think I had like F-16 or something. F-16 combat really emphasized the F-16 jet. The single engine. The rocket, it's like a fucking rocket.
When I was asking Nick about this upcoming Mars retrograde, Nick did it best, and he pointed out the 79-year recurrence to me. And when I saw how that lined up with Trump's chart, you can actually see me be like visibly sort of shook up about it in that forecast episode for the year ahead for 2024, because I got an understanding of the implication of what that meant in terms of like the presidential election and everything else in the coming year. And you can still go back and watch that in the 2024 year ahead forecast. So this recurrence,
cool, man. Yo, congrats on fixing your PC, dude. I'm so happy to hear that, man. I miss that. I miss the stream.
And I think that's really fascinating because Mars has always, at its core, traditionally been associated with both the military.
Sick, man. That's good.
And you have like a military parade and Trump getting involved in launching potentially a major conflict with Iran that same weekend, which was pretty striking astrologically.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, as I said before, when I was
fuck
watching
you,
it,
man.
I was just tripping out on Mars and the kind of stuff, because that gathering together of forces, the gathering together of gathering together of
Oh my god!
aggressive forces theme that you see with Leo 3.
So I duped 140 earlier today, so there's hope.
Protesting have to gather together either aggressive forces against something.
There is hope.
My
My vape is so hot.
Right, like the gathering together, and then you had literally the gathering together and showing off the forces for the military parade, and it was just like a fractal what Mars in that deck is supposed to be able to do. With some of the sort of random news stories that we gathered together where animals came together to do violence.
That's cool, man.
Anyway, I guess just to cap that off, and we were discussing this and we were...
Can you play it again, like, tonight or this weekend or something? What day is it? Monday?
It made more sense that you would have that natal position not just very evident during the return, but like fractally evident all over the place against him and for him and in 5 other places. It's like a hyper-activation of a natal position, right? Like literally a once-in-a-lifetime level strength of activation.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that fixed star itself, traditionally in Hellenistic astrology, Regulus is associated with Mars and Jupiter, and the star is said to be a blend of Mars and Jupiter. And some of the delineation.
Thanks, man. Thanks for being here, man. My friends. I'm really lucky.
Commanders.
All my friends in chat.
Some of the delineations that are given in some of the ancient texts, and in this, we're seeing this impulse on some level that Trump has always had with Mars.
Like this fucking guy, dude.
But now coming into it in this more full way, somebody that is military-minded and also willing to unleash some of that now, especially having almost unchecked
Those are
power
bad.
to a certain extent, and what the impulse would be in some instances then when presented with like the opportunity.
How about Call of Duty? You said you wanted to try Call of Duty.
A striking example of that, and just striking that the day he was born, there was also a similar alignment between Mars and Regulus.
Oh yeah, you were talking about the input lag.
And that sometimes the seeds for things are laid.
You can
very
Google
far in the past,
your
but
TV
when that
model
occurrence, the fruition takes place.
with the word input lag after. It might tell you.
A good example of that. It's a good
The
example.
TV, you might be able to test it on the TV itself, but
Read extremely large and
Yeah, so
definitely need to do that.
that I found very fascinating is Regulus. I just did the Mesopotamian astrology.
What controller are you using? Using a wired controller to your computer or wireless? Playing my Wi-Fi. Won't be optimized for that game anyways.
And it talks about the fixed stars. It's called the Lola Pen, and it's an astronomical /
yeah.
text. And when it gets to Regulus, several times it actually
PS3 through
gives a name
USB?
to Regulus as it calls it the king.
Through like
What I
a
found
USB adapter or
fascinating
something?
about that is then that weekend, while that Mars alignment with Regulus is happening in Trump's
Or
birthday,
wireless or
there's
Bluetooth.
also these wide-scale protests
Just out of
across the
curiosity.
United States, and they actually call them the No Kings protests. And these ended up being estimated, some of the analysis was that these were estimated to be among the largest protests in U.S. history. And I thought that was an interesting additional manifestation of the Mars Regulus alignment.
Oh wow,
as
that's
well as
true.
square Uranus, because from Malefics, one of the things you
That's
get sometimes
that's
is
crazy.
a negation.
PS3 is USB. Wow.
Mars and Saturn do, and having
PS2
alignment
is,
with
yeah,
Regulus plus
not,
square
but
Uranus, you have these huge
interesting.
protests that are called the No Kings protest. Like that just seems very perfect.
Cool, so it's wired, yeah.
Perfect and literal alignment.
yeah, absolutely. When even the name Regulus, which we should be pronouncing Regulus because it's the same reg as in region.
Interesting.
Like it's literally Regulus is just a rephrasing of the king, where it's reg as in regent. I can't bring myself to say it.
Yo, what's up, KMK?
But no, dear.
KMK Legend, what's up, man?
And so Mars attacking the star named the King, I agree, is pretty stark. And it also has Pluto in Aquarius vibes as far as what supports that in the slower moving background.
Oh, wow.
Pluto in Aquarius events
Don't you need
from the last
dual
generation
axis?
was the French Revolution.
Don't you need two axes to look
Very
and
much,
to move?
Very much a no king's protest. They got a little out of hand.
Good call. So the protests were largely peaceful, but I noticed a number of fights and occasional violence broke out, especially with counter-protesters. There was somebody that was killed in Salt Lake City, supposedly in the process of stopping a mass shooter. An innocent bystander got killed by somebody that was trying to stop the guy that pulled out a gun. Additionally, that morning, like some of the protests were
They have two.
cloud over them, because that morning
Interesting.
I woke up to the news that
Thanks, KMK. I have been streaming a lot today.
politicians that have taken place.
I guess this is number 3.
The homes of 2 separate politicians with he was dressed as a police officer, and he also had this creepy fake latex mask
Thanks, man.
on, and he murdered 2 people and wounded 2 others.
They have 2.
And
Interesting.
there was a shootout with the police, and somehow he escaped, and then he was on the run for like the next day or 2. But he ended up, when he was apprehended finally, I think 24 or so hours later, he had a hit list of 45 Democrats that he planned to target. So it did end up being this really chilling thing that was happening, especially because he was on the run for most of that subsequent weekend when all this other crazy stuff was happening, especially when it was combined with the military parade and like the war with Iran breaking out at the same
Yeah,
time.
man. I will look forward to seeing those streams, Ninja. For sure, brother.
Of Mars coming up on Gygesz with like attacking those who are holding office. It wasn't a list of people who had no power or position.
Yeah, exactly. He was attacking. Yeah,
Those who had a station in the governance of a nation.
right.
The health business.
Yeah, so that's chilling, and then also just in whatever the era is that we're entering into, where things like that are happening and increasing, it seems, with frequency in terms of targeted political killings. So we'll see how that evolves in the future. All right, so in addition to those major stories, there was also just, I was occasionally seeing in my news feed or in social media, like this string of other freak accidents and like bizarre, often violent tragedies that were all clustered around the Mars-Uranus square. And I wanted to quickly mention a group of them just because I want to have those in our database for the future when we're talking about what sometimes happens in the Mars-Uranus alignments. And in some of the texts from like a century ago, like the cosmobiology texts, I think they have delineations like this, where they're just like, you know, Mars-Uranus is freak accidents and things like that, so that we have some knowledge of that, but actually seeing it happen in real time and being able to articulate that is something that I'm very interested in right now. So here's some of the stories that I wrote down. This is not a comprehensive list.
Thank you, Toad. That hits my heart. That hits my heart, man. It hits home. Thank you, brother.
June 12th, Air India Flight 171 crashed and killed everybody on board except for a single guy who like, miraculously survived. June 12th, there was a billionaire who was playing polo.
You know what, though, brother?
He swallowed a bee and he died while playing polo.
Saturn was in Pisces for like 2.5 years. Pisces is all about games and having fun and community and anonymity and on the internet and like streaming video games. Like my life became video games and streaming, which is, you know, it's amazing. I love it. But now that Saturn's moved into Aries, I don't know, Saturn's all about, they say like hard lessons and just like the theme of whatever the fuck's going on. So like Saturn was in Aquarius during the whole injection segregation shit. And Aquarius is all about like independence and science and rebellion.
There's another just visually stunning example of another explosion right on this alignment. Also the same day, on June 18th, 16 billion login credentials
In the
leaked
collective.
in the world's largest data breach. June 21st, a Brazilian tourist died by falling into an active volcano crater in Indonesia. And if I may, also on June 21st, when Mars was still squaring Uranus about 3 degrees away, but it was now in Virgo, there was this news
Thanks,
story
so, you know,
where 146
I know you
people were
tried.
stabbed
You
by
definitely
syringes
tried
in
to
coordinated
make me a
attack
full-time
with French
streamer, brother, and I
news
appreciate that.
which was like extremely Mars and Virgo square Uranus. So I just wanted to mention those because this isn't even a comprehensive list, but there's some underlying theme of just these weird and bizarre, violent events and explosive events that were like taking place all in alignment with that square. And I think that's really important to understand in terms of the potential of why we describe these alignments sometimes the way that we do.
Yeah, it really is with Uranus and Mars. You get the unexpected, or you say like the low percentage chance violent and pleasant thing. And so
Come on, man.
this doesn't quite make the list, but my parents have been staying with us. My dad somehow stepped on a toothpick in the middle of the night. Like a piece of a toothpick had fallen down and somehow fallen so that it was cleaned up. And so my dad's foot got impaled by a toothpick in the middle of the night, and it got infected, and he had to go to the ER. It's been a whole thing. But if you dropped 30 toothpicks on the ground and then you walked across them, they wouldn't. You would not have any of them go directly up into your foot. But like super low percentage chance, but like there you go. And that hits natal.
Come on, game. Like this stupid game.
Yeah, because it's really perfect just because Virgo, and when I did the Zodiac series, that was one of the core things I established for Virgo is it moves very small things. And all much of the core symbolism of Virgo is like small things, whereas Mars is that which is sharp or pokey or cuts. And this syringe attack was like a crazy little manifestation of that. And then that's a nice addition.
Wow, Virgo rules small things. Interesting.
Yeah, so I wanted to mention this because one of the things about this Mars-Uranus alignment is it suddenly made me remember the last time we had a really striking Mars-Uranus alignment was the conjunction that occurred last summer in like July of 2024, where there was also this string of wild stories that happened very close together in time, all very close to the Mars-Uranus conjunction that was happening in Taurus. And these are just a few that I wrote down. I know there was more, but I couldn't find the longer list. But what I wrote down was that was the week that Trump was nearly assassinated. It was the week that Trump picked his vice president, and then he had a huge court case suddenly dismissed, which had been hanging over him and could have prevented him from like running in the presidential election. Suddenly just got dismissed out of nowhere.
Because he faked it.
Also, that Biden suddenly got COVID and then started facing a revolt in his own party, which eventually culminated in Biden dropping out of the race unexpectedly or somewhat suddenly at the very tail end of that alignment. And then finally, that week, there was the largest tech outage in history when there was this Windows update that got pushed to millions and millions of computers that crashed all of them all over the world, which is a very interesting comparison to one of the stories I just mentioned about the 16 billion login credentials leaked in the world's largest data breach that just occurred here. So, those Mars-Uranus alignments is a hard aspect you really gotta keep an eye on.
And so, we can all look forward to the next exact conjunction of Mars and Uranus. The first one in Gemini, which will be on July 4th of 2026. I'm sure nothing will happen. I'm sure it'll be a slow news week.
Yeah, that's crazy. Okay. Yeah, so we're gonna have to talk about that a lot in our year ahead forecast. That'll probably partially be a recurrence of the U.S.'s natal signature, which is Mars conjunct Uranus and Gemini. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why these are so important and why the Uranus return is so important for the U.S. especially is because it has that Mars-Uranus signature built into its very birth chart and like DNA.
Yeah, Uranus and Gemini is inherently peaceful, but the reason, the chart reason that the U.S. is always doing a big conflict.
The guy was really happy I rated him today.
The United States has Mars with Uranus, right? And so whenever it's Uranus return, it's Mars with Uranus return.
Yeah.
I don't know if you were there, if anyone was there for that when we rated him in Golden Live Streamer. He was really happy.
No, I think that's the big stuff.
Okay, cool. Well,
I followed him. He's a cool guy.
reflection about the prediction stuff, or shall we move on?
I guess on reflection, we got it. It was interesting because there were different factors that made us, how should we say, moved us from suspicion to certainty. And we both got it almost exactly right, but kind of missed that last piece.
Alright, give me a minute. I'm gonna load the vape again. I gotta bring up my laundry.
The big escalation with Iran, but we didn't pick.
Living the exciting life.
We didn't pick the Mars Uranus.
Just doing laundry.
In the middle of June, which kind of seems like a gimme in retrospect.
Like, who hit me there? Like, come on.
Talking about Mars with the Mars.
Like, what?
With Mars in Leo and in Cancer.
It's too much, man.
God, like 8 months, and I was like, well, if it hasn't happened, then it's not going to happen. But in retrospect, like, that square with Uranus at the end of the sign was absolutely placed to further fine-tune the prediction. So close, but half a cigar, half the new cigar, maybe half a pack of cigarettes.
Yeah, I feel really good about it, and that I put together a list of clips because I went back afterwards to put together the clips to see what we did say and see the evolution of that. And I was thinking about putting that out as a super clip with commentary in between to explain the evolution of our thinking. I just didn't, because when I did the cut, it ended up being like an hour or like an hour and a half long with just the clips because of how many episodes we had talked about it on. So I'm still going to decide if I'm going to go back and do that, but I kind of want to do it just to show the evolution of our thinking and how we came to, how the prediction was grounded in things that we were thinking and seeing and observing and making inferences from as we saw them. And it was actually really impressive when you see it all put together in different episodes. But how it's nice to be able to say we called something, but then also have the humility to say like we didn't have the exact date of the Mars-Uranus thing, which but also like I'm thinking more about Trump's birthday and some of that other stuff. Although even that, it's kind of wild that they ended up scheduling it for the attack to happen the day before like Trump's birthday and military parade is pretty wild in and of itself.
That's crazy.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's it points towards that.
Oh Jesus, that's serious.
Where once somebody's installed as having a high or highest position in a country, their natal chart can tell you about the country in a way that it wouldn't otherwise.
Yeah, and then you have to pay attention to that chart because it starts representing the chart of everybody.
The actions of the country. A chief executive, right, is the one who executes or decides what the organs and limbs of the country will do. So their mental state, actions, etc., as described by the natal chart's activation matter in the way that it moves through.
Yeah, well, that was also relevant because there were multiple overlapping ways where that was true because Israel has Mars as 28 Leo in its birth chart, so that was also getting really activated at that time.
Oh, that's a great point. With Saturn and Pluto on the same side.
Right, yeah. So, it's a really good example also of how a prediction becomes more certain when you see multiple different things indicating something similar from different perspectives. And I think that's why it's useful also to take into account the different angles that are possible to you for predictive things, where, for example, in this prediction we took into account eclipses and seeing repeated repetition of eclipses. We took into account the Aries ingress chart for, in this instance, Tehran, and how Mars was exactly at a degree of the ascendant, as well as your research into when the last time was that happened, another major war was initiated. We took into account recurrences of other planetary things that are happening this year that happened at other important turning points in radiant history, like the 1953 coup with the Saturn-Neptune conjunction and the 1978 revolution that coincided with the Mars retrograde in Leo, as well as eclipses in Aries. So it's like multiple
and
vendors.
and the nature of this in Korea, the post-revolution 1979 chart for Iran, and the way that was getting lit up by those eclipses and by members, etc., etc.
Right, and then finally, we also have in the back of our mind the Uranus return of the United States and the precedent of a major war often coinciding with those transits, as well as, and then the very last piece. You know, I think if we had thought more, because the Mars-Uranus conjunction, because it was so prominent in Trump's 10th house last year, was so prominent last summer, if we had remembered and reviewed that a little bit more, I think we would have been even more focused on that.
I think if we didn't have 75 other things to think really hard about, we would have gotten there. But we did. That's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it. It's a good one.
All right, well, I feel good. So, yeah, I think that's good then for our review and for our news section. So, why don't we take a little break? I wanted to give a shout out to our sponsor this month, which is the United Astrology Conference. So the United Astrology Conference is happening September 3rd through the 9th in Chicago, 2026. The United Astrology Conference, which is also known as UAC, is the biggest astrological conference in the world, and it's typically held every 4 years since the 1980s. But this time it's back for the first time in 8 years, with the last one being in 2018. Join thousands of astrologers for an unforgettable experience of discovery, collaboration, and expansion. UAC is the place to be to sharpen your skills, connect with other astrologers, deepen your insights, and grow your astrological business. It's the world's biggest astrology conference, and here's some stats. So there's 5 astrology-packed days. They're expecting more than 1,500 people from all around the world of all different levels and astrological interests. There's going to be 186 speakers giving lectures, with over 270 lectures plus 200 informal lunchtime lectures. 15 different tracks, including the essentials of astrology, health and wellness, relationships, finance, economics, Vedic astrology, traditional astrology, mundane, horary, and more. There's 6 pre-conference workshops and 6 post-conference workshops, and there's an opening ceremony keynote lecture given by Shannon Nicholas. It's also happening in the vibrant city of Chicago, and there's going to be nightly entertainment and many other events. The United Astrology Conference is brought to you by the AFA, ESAR, NCGR, and OPA, along with ACPA and AYA. These organizations are holding exams and also hosting member events all week. Early registration starts on August 18th, 2025, and note that members of the sponsoring organizations receive a registration discount. For more information about the conference and accommodations, visit uacastrology.com, and I'll put a link to that in the description for this episode, whether it be on YouTube or on the podcast website. So this is super exciting. This is the big conference where all of the big astrological organizations in the U.S. pool their resources and host one big mega conference, which used to take place every 4 years, but due to the pandemic and everything, this is the first time one has happened since 2018, so 8 years, and it's going to be magnificent. Every UAC I've been to since 2008 has been just this huge experience because of just the sheer amount of astrologers there is really hard to explain. Having more than 1,000 astrologers in one place for a week doing all these lectures and workshops and meeting and talking is really a great experience.
Yeah, it's magnificent. Yeah, it's being in a good way drowned in the sea of astrology. I made it to 2018 and 2012. I didn't make it to 2008, but both of those were so memorable. And I'll be there. I've got 2 lectures and a workshop, so I will be one of the 286, 76 speakers, whatever that was. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. There was, we fretted behind closed doors about when and if it would happen again because COVID was such an interruption. And it's such a monumental feat of organization to get it all together. It's very reassuring that it's actually happening again.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a staple of the community and even the older astrologers. As I was here, they're talking about how they would tell time by UACs because it was this regular thing ever since the 1980s when the first UAC happened in 1987. I have that documentary up on the podcast website actually about it was filmed from the first UAC in 1987 in California. And every 4 years it would happen like clockwork. So having that sort of interruption due to the COVID pandemic and everything, it threw things off community-wise in a way that I think is visible, and I'm glad that things are starting to get back on track.
Yeah, because I mean, it is by far the largest gathering of astrologers that happens, and there's something very special and catalytic about getting as many astrologers together in one place at one time. And it's not, it's not, many conferences accidentally or otherwise end up sort of being more towards this style of astrology or that style of this collection. But UAC isn't everybody. And it is also, in the past at least, I'm sure next year as well, is the most international. You'll meet people who have come from very far away. And so it's the biggest hit, and it contains the most astrology you've ever seen in the world.
Absolutely. So definitely check it out. Ticket prices will go up eventually, so it's always good to register early once registration opens. And like we said, if you're a member of one of the sponsoring organizations, then you actually get a discount on your registration tickets. So it kind of pays to sign up for membership. So you can find out more information about the United Astrology Conference and the different sponsoring organizations at uacastrology.com. Alright, so shout out to them. I also wanted to mention here in this announcement section that I'm doing a summer sale on the Hellenistic Astrology course where I'm doing a 15% off sale only for 2 weeks from now until July 14th. And if you want to get that 15% discount, just use the promo code Jupiter during checkout, and it will give you 15% off the price of the course. We've been doing some great monthly webinars recently where we've been focused on the reading charts and doing the retrograde cycle of like Venus and Mars and learning some really deep things in some of those course webinars. But this month, I think I'm going to move more into also doing some like chart reading ones about what are your first steps when you sit down and want to read a birth chart and start synthesizing the techniques and using it in practice in terms of what are the first things you should look at when you're reading a birth chart, and doing some live demonstrations with that starting probably at the first webinar here in July, the first weekend. So if you want to sign up, that's where I teach all of the predictive techniques for natal astrology and how to read a birth chart. So I recommend taking advantage of this sale because it's very rare to do. Sounds good. Yeah, so you can find out more information at theastrologyschool.com. Alright, I think that's good for news and announcements. Why don't we transition now into talking about the forecast for July?
Let's do it.
Alright, so this is really
Yo, Sailor, what's up,
brother?
brother?
There's a lot of stuff happening this month. It's kind of a tough month, like, especially for elections.
Yo, I think it's time to uncancel the old PogChamp. What's up, Sailor Chris? Uncancel? Oh, you mean the Asian guy? The Chinese guy. Sorry, I don't know if he's Chinese. I'm just making a dumb joke. Goose says quack, just winging it here. What's going on? Crispin wrong Calgary. Once wrestling Calgary, almost stole the show. Oh no. Come on. Everyone just shut up to watch. Never forget the brutal grind Benoit put in, man.
Submarine implosion.
Yeah, all of a sudden everybody was like talking about this like horror story scenario.
Yo, what's up, Cord? What's up, brother?
A mile under the ocean.
Oh man, no worries, dude, brother. Oh man, we take our time here. I'm sorry, my friend. Sometimes I might walk late for like half an hour, and I apologize. I don't mean to. I didn't even fold the laundry. I just hung up my t-shirts so they don't wrinkle.
It's Saturn, right? Which is being trapped.
Oh, I'm gonna like reload the vape right now, my dude. Thanks, brother.
So yeah, we'll see what the far too literal manifestation of Saturn's first station in Aries looks like.
Yeah, so the stationary dates are going to be, interestingly, July 4th for Neptune, and then July 13th for Saturn. But also this month, they come within a degree of each other in their closest past this year in 2025 without going exact. And so we're going to see a peak intensity of that energy of Saturn Neptune, which has to do with these dissolving.
If you click on my about information, I have a link to the input display on my Twitch profile. You click on about me, and you scroll down. You'll see a picture of me, and then you scroll down, and then it'll say this is the input display I use. Make sure to select input display option, which costs more, because it's a switcher with input display. So there's a switcher which is less expensive, but that doesn't have input display, so you need to select the input display. Highly recommended. Oh, do I have a command for it? I might have a command for it. Look at that. Isn't that just like amazing? Alright, I'm gonna load the vape. I highly recommend it. It's amazing.
But then historically we also have the collapses of emotion.
Cool, bro.
Sort of macro power scales as well as on a smaller scale where what seemed invincible was revealed to have no staying power whatsoever. We get that where we get instead of the walls needing to be stormed, you just have a touch and things kind of turn to mush like a rotten pumpkin. Where it's the end of an illusion, right? When Saturn both confirms longevity of something, right? That solidification, like, no, this is new flawless, or it reveals internal, and it reveals internal rot. And so we will be expecting to see that, and as we see that, we will be. That will inform our thinking about the one perfect conjunction between the two, which occurs in a little more than 6 months later. Right, this is as close as they get, and it's a station. We get one perfect conjunction, which is in the middle of February next year. And so this would be, an excellent status update on what Saturn, Neptune, and Aries is planning.
I was reading this, there's a Washington Post article on June 20th, and it was titled, "The U.S. Helped Oust Iran's Government in 1953, Here's What Happened." And my ears picked up because I knew from doing the Saturn-Neptune episode earlier this year that 1953 was a Saturn-Neptune conjunction. And it was just talking about how the U.S. Orchestrated a coup to overthrow the Iranian government and install the Shah in 1953. But there's this one paragraph in it that was really interesting where they talked about the Red Bulls that was backed by the CIA taking over the main radio broadcast system in Tehran, in Iran, and they declared that the government had been overthrown when it wasn't. But then as a result of declaring that and everybody believing that the government fell, it actually caused it to fall, caused the revolution, that coup to actually take place. And the historian who's being interviewed in the piece, whose name is Ranjabar Dani, said, quote, "After that radio broadcast, it was over. Quote, it was one of the most effective pieces of fake news in recent history in the world." And I thought that was an amazing quote because of that Saturn-Neptune conjunction getting exact in 1953, and now we have some parallel thing happening today. And what's additionally funny about that is in 1953, the U.S. installed the Shah at that time after overthrowing the government, and right now, the son of the Shah, who was overthrown in the 1979 revolution, Iranian revolution, is now suddenly like resurfaced over the past month and is doing interviews and putting out press statements and is like trying to say that he's going to come back. So it's clear that there's some sort of attempt to perhaps like bring him back somehow.
Yeah, and that's such an interesting point to look back on in reference to this pair of stations, these paired stations of Saturn and Neptune so close to perfectly conjunct, because not only is Iran in the news for important reasons, and that was when that coup took place, but we also have the current leaders of both Russia and China who were born with that Saturn-Neptune conjunction, and there was another Saturn-Neptune conjunction between them and then, but the one that took place in the early 50s was in Libra, exactly opposite the one that we have slash will be perfect in about 7 months, right? So there's such a relationship between the one that is ongoing slash upcoming and the early 50s. We of course had the rather famous one in 1989 to 91, which saw the collapse of the Soviet Union. But that early 50s one is interesting. It would be very interesting to see what the almost Saturn conjunction this month does as one station. What does it say about Xi Jinping? What does it say about the trajectory of contemporary Russia? Do we see the newfangled AI version of fake news in a way that has a meaningful political impact, like that parallels the broadcast in Iran in 1953 that we're talking about. So eyes on that.
Yeah, there has been. I was surprised at the amount of deception that took place that Trump pulled off over the past several months in order to do fake out some different things prior to this attack. And so that was one element that I actually noticed, is that there was a heavy use of deception, including just the bombers. For example, remember on the eclipses in March, they started moving the B-2 bombers into place in Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean, but those were open to view and could easily be tracked. But then in the actual attack itself, what they ended up doing is they flew bombers straight from Missouri overnight all the way over to Iran as part of the deception in order to have things take place. So there's some element of deception being used for military purposes right now that could be part of what we're seeing as an evolving thing that's also a repetition from that 1953 thing.
Yeah, and that casts an interesting light over August, Mars opposite Saturn and Neptune, which brings Mars fully into relationship with Saturn and Neptune. And you make a great point with the deception these time, deception being explicitly used for military purposes, because this is Saturn and Neptune, which is always capable of deception, and it speaks to the longevity, the lack thereof of illusions, but it's in Aries. It's in the sign of Mars, right? So the manifestations are going to be skewed towards the Martian consistently.
And this almost kind of ties in with, the Uranus-Pluto trine is getting so close and gets so close this summer, but we've seen this massive ramping up over the past month in very unique drone attacks. First with Ukraine attacking Russia with this historic drone attack where they have all these trucks moved into Russia close to air bases, and then all of a sudden they activated them, and the drones flew out and started bombing the planes and destroyed a bunch of planes in this unprecedented attack. But then also there was something similar where Israel apparently also had drones in place in Iran, which they then activated at the time as well. So there's some element to that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Should we get to Uranus in Gemini so that we can talk about all the things it's going to do?
Yeah,
because Because it's going to try Pluto, which is that. It's going to...
Let me just say one last thing about Saturn Neptune, which is just I have been impressed by with the AI stuff, although there's this term that's become common, like AI slop, where now there's just this huge amount of like AI generated stuff that's like everywhere at this point. In connection with Saturn Neptune, I have been impressed by the creativity of some of the videos occasionally where people are like imagining things and then bringing those into reality that are previously things that you'd only see having somebody's imagination, and that nobody would like take the time to film, or like you would not see things that created that often. So some of them that are happening, one thing I've seen over the past month is like vlogs of video logs of historical or other events. Like one of them was like a vlog of like the Virgin Mary, and she's like vlogging her pregnancy as if she's like a young woman in her 20s or a teenager or something who's like doing a normal vlog, except it's like the Virgin Mary, and at the end the three wise men show up and give her gifts and stuff like that. Or there's another that is like stormtroopers through vlogging about how they just got an order to go to the forest moon of Endor for what should be a pretty easy job. And like little things like that, or elsewhere there were these ASMR videos of like glass fruit being cut, and just like the sound, because now it's sound, but also the imagery of that, is that you're seeing something that previously could only be imagined, but all of a sudden somebody's like bringing it into life in some way, and the level of creativity involved in it, I think there's some element of that I'm kind of impressed by, that how closely it's coinciding with the Saturn and Neptune.
Yeah, it's like the maturation, or a further maturation of that set of tools. And when you put those tools in the right hands, you get works that you probably wouldn't have otherwise seen, or that would have taken, scores of hours more time. A friend of mine on that Ted, the only thing I think I've enjoyed is that I was corresponding with an old friend of mine. I sent him some pictures of Lucian, and then he sent them back to me with a filter that made Lucian a cute little kung fu toddler, and I appreciated that.
That's good. Another one I saw on June 16th was AI celebrities that were teaching math and educational content. Where it was like a video where like an AI generated Sydney Sweeney and an AI generated Drake were teaching geometry, and specifically like Euclid's elements, but it was completely AI generated, but also it looked completely and sounded completely real. Like you couldn't tell that it was AI generated, and obviously you get into all sorts of like other ethical issues surrounding that because they didn't consent to that, other things like that. But that's kind of where we're at and where some of this technology is going. At the same time, we also have a lot of deception and weird negative things that are happening at the same
Cool,
time.
man.
Where there was a story this month about this guy who like proposed to his AI girlfriend, but at the same time he was like married and had a 2-year-old, and it was kind of a disturbing story. Or there's lots of other stories like that have been coming out about some negative impacts of some of this AI generated content and the sort of like delusional aspect of some of it.
Yeah, and there have also been some sort of early studies about the impact on cognitive skills of asking ChatGPT everything rather than thinking and doing research, and how, quite unsurprisingly, it makes you dumber in a measurable way.
Oh, no way.
When you don't exercise your brain.
Yeah, and just the past couple of years that we've had Pluto going into Aquarius, I think AI has penetrated more levels of society than we realize, because you hear stories of that, of like
Were both guards going to the glass door? You need both going.
Or there's people using like AI therapists, or so many different things, so many different levels of society.
As you probably know.
By it, and this is still just the beginning of this transit as well as this phenomenon.
Yeah, when you try to get, when you're on the website of some sort, when you're trying to ask questions, when you're trying to troubleshoot, very often.
Yeah, you need both.
Assisted, you and I have both found people trying to use AI to pass
I think because one goes to the point and the second one tries to go to the point and tries to run around. Oh yeah, I mean, there's no way to know. So I think one is like at the point, the other one is trying to get to the point, so he runs around and opens the glass door to try to get there.
For astrology to read their birth chart or something, but the AI is just like constantly wrong about things, but because they're younger students, they don't realize that it's wrong about those things. So
you can't, there's like, you can't shoot too high. You can't really shoot, like when you shoot the mainframe to lure the guard, you can't shoot too high and you can't shoot too far right. That line, you know how there's like a vertical line, a gray vertical line in the mainframe? You can't shoot past that to the right.
So when talking about
Yo, Hideyoshi, what's up, man?
This aspect connected with that, which I think is going to accelerate that, which is Uranus trine Pluto. I think this Uranus-Pluto trine, which is moving into less than a degree of orb. Last year it came within 3 degrees, still in, while Uranus is still going into Taurus. This year, Uranus is going into Gemini this month.
Come on.
And it's also going to be very, very closely trine Pluto, which is still in the Aquarius.
See you there?
And
That was like really perfect spot.
Aquarius has been coinciding with the explosion of these AI technologies over the past few years. I think Uranus going to Gemini is going to massively accelerate that and indicate some sort of turning point with respect to that. And this year it comes with it.
Yeah, man, exactly, buddy.
In the next several months, we're going to have an intensification of that, but then it'll go exact 5 times as discovered over the next few years. And the dates are July 2026, November 2026, June 2027, January 2028, and finally May 2028 before it starts moving away, although it has one more very close pass of less than a degree in 2029. It's functionally probably going to be very important as well, but that's what we're looking at for the completion of some of these aspects over the next several years.
Come on. Like, come on, man.
This is when the cyberpunk layer arrives. We can see it. We can see it looking through and starting up right around the first ingress of Pluto into Aquarius. But this is such a profound harmony between the 2 planets that have.
Should be expected. That should be the null hypothesis.
Everything about the history of Uranus and Gemini, outside of the U.S. stuff, is pro-technology. We have all of these burgeoning technologies, and with Pluto and Aquarius and the that simulation of human agency or decision-making and function that we get that seems to be best represented by the AI. It's like, how many things can you put in AI? Like how many Uranus and Gemini things? How many drones? Oh, all of them, right? How many vehicles, et cetera, and so that coming together of those 2 forces, which we are currently 9 days away from the beginning of, 8.5 days away from, like that, it's just going to be every 6 months. The 2 will have been joined. We've been joined by the planets, and yeah, I expect exactly the same. And then Neptune in Aries, I think, is going to help as well, but we would get all this, I think, without any other help. It's going to be very rapid, and it's going to be stuff that's been almost ready, but then you plug it together with this other thing that's been almost ready, and you get a pretty dramatic set of practical, real transformation.
Come on. No!
I'll
Continue.
One of the things Uranus does is it quickens and it speeds up and accelerates the pace of things. And so Pluto in Aquarius was already doing a bunch of these massive transformations to our society and all these different levels based on AI. Having Uranus come into this close trine, is like a powerful supporting aspect of some of Uranus. You can just move things quicker and pick up the pace.
Oh my god. Whatever.
things have already been moving so fast that my initial reaction is sort of like, well, things can't move faster than they already are. But the astrology to me is implying that very quickly, especially over the next few months, there's something that changes that does accelerate things suddenly when things start moving even faster than they already have been in this direction. And I don't know, I mean, with Uranus, it's implied that that's some sort of technological advancement that's discovered or unrolled at this time. And it's possible that part of what we're seeing is the acceleration of the move towards AGI, or artificial general intelligence, that could be completed by the time Uranus gets to the end of its transit through Gemini, for example, in the early to mid-2030s. It's possible that that's part of what we're seeing, but we may just be seeing something about the technology being improved in a way that makes it, I don't know, spread through society even more, even faster than it already is.
Yeah, I think one vector for acceleration is that can be seen historically with Uranus and Gemini is a lot of times things were invented before Uranus went into Gemini, but Uranus going into Gemini sees their broad-scale application where they change the way things work for the first time, even though somebody figured it out 10 years before, 5 years before, but they get used, right? Like in the Civil War, railroads had been invented before the Civil War, but they weren't. It was the first large-scale conflict where they were used for logistics, and it completely changes logistics. Same for, but there are 10 other things that were not technically invented during the U.S. Civil War, but were used for the first time in a large-scale conflict, and so they mattered in a practical way, in a situational way, in a physical way for the first time. Like they might as well have not existed before. And so all these things that could happen but haven't really happened probably will.
Yeah, it makes me think of how a lot of the technologies that existed before World War II existed already, but then there was just this massive acceleration of all those technologies that was completed during World War II when Uranus was in Gemini, like, you know, that truly becoming like airplanes truly becoming like hugely decisive in terms of winning that war, or atomic technology that was developing, but then all of a sudden was massively accelerated through government programs, secret government programs to research it, and eventually produced not just the bombs, but also nuclear energy, so that we entered into the era of nuclear energy after that as well.
Yeah. World War II is another great example, because there were tanks and planes at the beginning, but 5 years later, the tanks and planes that were being produced made the ones from, again, just a half decade earlier completely obsolete, right? And they mattered for the first time. They were decisive on, in that case, a global scale. It wasn't just like, oh yeah, we've got some of these will probably help, right? Oh, we can make tanks. We can make drones now, right? But check in 2035 about drones.
So in connection with this, let's talk about Uranus and Gemini. First, I want to show you that ingress date, which is July 7th. Uranus goes into the sign of Gemini. We see here 0 degrees of Gemini, and we see Pluto is at 2 degrees of Aquarius. So already, as soon as Uranus goes in, it's already within 3 degrees of Gemini and Pluto. And we also see that Uranus has a sextile with Saturn at 1 degrees of Aries, and Neptune 2 Aries. So all of this is intertwined, but especially what we're focused on is that Uranus-Pluto trine and how that's going to accelerate Pluto. But we also have to talk about Uranus and Gemini as a 7-year-long transit between now and the early 2030s, and what we mentioned earlier, partially, which is how that's always closely tied in with U.S. history. So let me show that graphic one more time from Madeline Coates of honeycomb.co that she made for me about Uranus and Gemini periods. And here, just the lineup of that is it's always been startling to astrologers over the past century. As long as I've been in astrology, this has been like a widely known correlation because it's been such a stunning one in U.S. history, which is Uranus was in Gemini 1774 through 1782, which very, very closely encompasses the Revolutionary War and the foundation of the United States. Then Uranus comes back around at the same sign every 84 years, and the next time it did that was 1858 to 1866, which very closely coincides with the Civil War. Then 84 years later, Uranus went into Gemini 1941 through 1949, which very interestingly encompasses when the U.S. entered into World War II, which had already been happening for a year or two up to that point.
It started in 37 in some places.
Right, yeah. So it timed not World War II itself, but it timed the U.S.'s entry into the war, which is really fascinating, especially in current times, thinking about other conflicts that have already been happening for a few years up to this point, and what that might look like the U.S. getting involved. Like, for example, what just happened this month. And then here, Uranus goes into Gemini July 7th, 2025, all the way until 2033 is what we're looking at in terms of this transit. So, one of the things about Uranus and Gemini is talking about Gemini itself. And Gemini, two things that come to mind for me is it has to do with communication, and it also has to do with travel, and especially like short distance travel to some extent. And one of the things that I noticed that just happened in the past week, as we're on the cusp of Uranus going to Gemini, is Elon Musk launched his robo-taxi service in Austin.
One sec.
And now he's competing head-to-head with Google that has their own robo-taxi service that they've already rolled out in several major U.S. cities. And one of the things, which is an obvious prediction at this point, but it's one that will be very stunning by the time we get to 2033 and look back on it, I think that it's going to happen. It's just us watching during the course of this transit the complete transformation of the local transport systems where automated cars become not just commonplace, but potentially like the predominant form of travel, both potentially with the taxi industry, but also potentially even moving into cars themselves in terms of whether people continue to choose to drive their own cars or whether they're always automated.
I'm drinking happiness, my friend.
Right.
A cup of happiness.
Yeah, that becoming a normal thing rather than an exotic option being tested somewhere, I think is a great point.
Yeah. So that's going to have, the other thing about Uranus is disruptive. And we have to think about it in terms of disruptive technologies and how new innovations and new technologies sometimes hugely disrupt pre-existing
Vaping
ones.
cannabis.
And other people's lives can be disrupted as a result of that. And one of the ones I'm already thinking about is like it's not drive-share industry, but like Lyft and Uber and all those companies over the past 10 years that have come out, which themselves were disruptive technologies 10 years ago when they started, that disrupted the existing taxi industry, when suddenly you could pull up an app on your phone and order a car from somebody that wasn't associated with one of the official taxi services, and how that's just completely taken over the past 10 years. But now you're potentially going to see a huge disruption of that industry once these robo-taxi services become commonplace and become popular, because then people aren't going to need to pay humans to drive cars anymore, because the cheaper and potentially more efficient or even potentially safer option is going to be a robo-taxi.
Yeah, and it's interesting because some of them I know at least Uber had plans to have automated cars a long time ago, and they're not in the running, but they publicly foresaw this and wanted to be there for the next disruption. But you raise an interesting point that I wonder if this might be part of this upcoming period of time where the last round of disruptors themselves get disrupted. Because one of the things that one of the general public things about Uranus and Gemini that I'm focused on is that Uranus is historically and logically very strong in Gemini. It's very capable of doing all its
Really?
disrupting and innovative things. And this is a little, this is sort of essential dignity thinking, which we don't have. We don't have Uranus and Neptune as part of the theme mundi, as part of traditional structures, but it is relatively easy to observe that they seem to have a natural alliance. They seem to work much better in signs of a certain quality. And whether that's phrased in terms of an essential dignity scheme or not, we can still observe that quality. And by all observations, historically and so in terms of the fundamental rationale, Uranus, the skyborne disruptor, is not a perfect match for the fixed Earth sign Taurus, right? And if we look at that last round of disruptors, right, like Facebook, Apple, Uber, etc., during this Uranus and Taurus period, which we're at the very end of, they just sort of stayed strong at the top of the market. They were, they became arguably monopolies or near monopolies. But you have like that accumulative, solid premium quality. They themselves are not subject to disruption. And that ties very nicely with Uranus's entry into Taurus, where it's harder to recognize disruption. But this is, it's Uranus is going back into the real sign. I think part of it, especially, I've started to kind of feel some twinkles and suggestions internally amongst the position of my Uranus is crucial in my chart. I've started to feel like that's sort of revving up again. And I think that part of this is just that it's Uranus time. With Uranus has been a little bit stifled. It's as if it's been in a sign of exile or fall, like a position of low efficacy, where it's moving into a position of extremely high efficacy. What do you think about that, Chris?
I would go so far as to say, to bring in a talk of like essential dignity into it, but I will say that because Uranus and Mercury have some similar overlapping significations, that it's experienced as a doubling up and a complementary significations that therefore exacerbate each other's natural significations in Gemini, like especially Mercury having to do with speed, Uranus having to do with speed, both of them having to do with like disruptions, both of them having to do with like technologies. I think that's part of why we're seeing such an interesting combination with Uranus and Gemini, just because of the dual overlapping things, and that's just a regular thing in astrology, that when you see two things that indicate the same thing, it tends to confirm the primary signification that they share between them.
We could also, another traditional piece that's used in Vedic astrology is, well, are the two planets friends? Are you friends or enemies or neutral with the ruler of the sun? And I think that Uranus and Mercury are probably friends. And so Uranus has a pretty good time when staying at Mercury's house.
Right, absolutely. So, travel, the other thing that's important, that's tied in with Gemini and Mercury, that's such a core thing, is like communication, language, and just communication technologies in general. And there's something disruptive and innovative and new about the way that we communicate and the technologies that we use to communicate that I think is going to emerge from this. And some of that we can already see because the advancements in AI technology that have happened over the past few years were due to an innovation in language learning models, and realizing that language itself is part of the key to creating more lifelike artificial intelligence than what we had up to this point. But there's something either about that and the notion of large language models that is going to get expanded to reach an turning point there's something about communication technologies and language itself that's going to have an important turning point when Uranus goes into Gemini that I'm excited to see what that is, because I don't think we can predict precisely what that is ahead of time, but there's something that's going to fit that archetype that's going to be surprising to us and is going to potentially be revolutionary during the next several years.
Yeah, and that's so well supported during the Uranus and Gemini in the 1860s. We see the telegraph take off in usage, kind of important, and then during so many communication technologies. Among the many, the first modern television set was created and not just created but produced during that Uranus and Gemini time frame, which is for in the case of television, one-way distribution of information, but two-way is also important, like a telegraph. And so these are pretty landmark technologies that ended up structuring the way people communicate, right, and the way that information is distributed. They were niche prototypes, and that's one thing. One thing I would add to Mercury, and especially the Gemini version of Mercury, is that Mercury's interested in application. Like, oh, you know how to do a thing? You figured that out in the lab? What if we made a thing that does a thing and everybody had it? Right? Mercury and Gemini loves to actually get it to application and see what it looks like in action.
Absolutely. Yeah. So disruptive technologies that take over and become commonplace really quickly is what I'm looking for in both communication technologies, and also in terms
Welcome
of travel.
back.
So I'm looking to see what that is and how that
No worries, brother.
with this Uranus-Pluto track especially. So let's back up and let's
Welcome back.
chronological breakdown of the month. Now that we've covered like the big picture things, those outer planet shifts, because I want to talk about our very first set of things this month all happen on July 4th, where I noticed that there's like four very kind of important transits. One of them is that Neptune stations retrograde that day in Aries, and it's its very first station in Aries, which, again, I said was important because that's usually
Nice, man.
an exclamation mark or something related to the transit.
I'm a big fan of daily flossing and daily brushing.
Something where you have a very explicit insight into what that
I'm a big fan of flossing. I floss every day. Brush once or twice a day. Try to do twice.
In a way that's recognizable. Like it's a Z/resort. It's whatever Neptune glyph it's going to leave there as an event or series of events.
So it's like we have that happen on July 4th. Venus conjoins Uranus on July 4th in the very last degree at 29 degrees of Taurus, and then Venus enters Gemini later that same day on July 4th. And interestingly, Mercury reaches its greatest evening star elongation on July 4th as well, which means on this day, on or around this day, Mercury is going to be at its most bright and visible in terms of being an evening star before eventually later in the month it slows down and turns retrograde and starts moving backwards, at which point it will go under the beams of the sun and disappear. And I noticed
Well said,
this
man.
evening star in maximum elongation being very
Yeah, dude.
important for
Daily
Venus.
flossing is so good.
Where, for example,
It's so good for the soul.
Nick and I accidentally recorded the Venus and Aries in History episode that day, and I didn't realize that Venus was at its greatest elongation. We did this like massive deep dive into what Venus retrograde in Aries was all about on the day of its greatest elongation. So I'll be paying attention to something with Mercury being particularly loud.
I think I'm going to change this video. We're not going to watch the entire video.
Has just entered the shadow of its retrograde. And so
We're going to change it.
it's on the very last
I'm going to watch
stage.
like animals, like some nature.
So, by the time July.
I don't know. I don't know what's going on in this level. I never on it. Yeah, this video is sick. It's gonna be sick. This is 3 hours of Safari. Yeah, baby. Hell yeah. Let's go. I'm not gonna stream for 3 hours though, but what the fuck? What a shot. Look at this footage, it's just amazing. Oh no, why not both? Come on, Z's. Dude, at least he's honest. At least the Z is an honest man. Does he? Does he really? Wow, look at this footage. That's crazy. That's crazy. Oh man, AI is really getting really shitty. It's definitely changing. It's definitely getting worse. Look how beautiful that lion is. That lion is so, like, just gorgeous. Punch the chicken on the other side. Why did the chicken cross the road to punch the chicken on the other side? Flex that mental boulder. What a terrifying animal. Come on. Oh, scanned. Scanned. It's a pretty good attempt. Wow, that's like, that was really good. Just a digital ruse. He's screwed. That was an A+ effort. What's up, Perfect Ace? Carney does U-turn on U.S. tech tax. Oh wow. Interesting. Yeah, they're probably just trying to, I don't know what they're doing. I think they're all in cahoots though, man. I think they're all part of the globalist agenda. Man, AI's getting really dumb, man. AI's getting really dumb. If you write like a long specified prompt, it improves its effort. But I guess if you put low effort in, it gives low effort out. Thank you, Goose. Africa's fucked, man. Africa's another world, man. Like, look at those animals. Like the hippopotamus and the lion, the giraffe. The giraffe will come and just like kick you and you die. It's fucked, man. I pet a giraffe in South Africa. They're actually, the one we pet was really sweet. It was extremely sweet. Apparently they have big hearts. Like literally they have like a large heart. It was really sweet. It was rubbing its head against our hands and stuff. We were feeding it. Had a long black tongue. It was wild. Like a gray tongue. Really nice experience. Really beautiful animal. But it can totally like, kill you. Look at those lions. They look like fucking like fighter jets just sitting out on the runway, man, ready to fuck you up, man. That shit's crazy. Like, look at that thing. That thing doesn't even have walls. Imagine a lion just coming up and fucking just grabbing someone. It's from this. I should advertise it. Oh, because I'm playing it. Follow this channel. It's from this video. Relaxation film. See, I'm already subscribed, right? Relaxation film. Yeah, it's nice. This is such a nice video, man. Follow them, subscribe to them. Subscribe to the relaxation. Yeah, dude, the dogs, the African wild dogs were really crazy, man. They looked exactly like that. They're pretty scary. The elephants. It's crazy. Africa's another world, man. Oh, man. Oh. What? Yo, when's my flight? I found a pool synthetic Serenity 2. I'll screenshot that. Cool, bro. I never heard that before. I like Space Dreams on di.fm. My flight is probably in 2 weeks. I might purchase it in the next day or two. Maybe like in the next 2 weeks, maybe July 12th to 14th or something. Yeah, man, I'm going to China. Space Dreams. Di.fm has a lot of good channels. What, like he got eaten? Are they saying that like the Chinese people ate him? A spicy trips feast. I ate goose. The last meal I ate in China was goose. Bless that goose. Thank you, dear goose. I ate it at the airport. It was really good. Thank you, dear goose. You guys gotta come visit. You gotta come to China. Come on. Is it any good? It's all hype. It's a lot of fat and the skin, but in China it's really good. I don't know why. It's just good. There is a bit of meat, but yeah, it is hype. But it's a little different. Just I don't know why. It seems like they provide a lot of meat. Sometimes. At a fancy restaurant, they might be stingy. A lot of fat, a lot of skin, a lot of fat. I don't eat the fat, I don't eat the skin. That would waste like half, like at least half, 50% of it is fat and skin. If not more than 50%. So, I don't eat it. I eat one piece. If that. Fuck. It's just so dumb, man. Yeah, dude, that dog, man. That dog is terrifying. The red eyes, Jesus Christ. Man, these lines are just so beautiful. Holy moly, man. These lines are crazy. Okay, man. Yo, True Faith, what's up, man? It's going alright. I duped 140 earlier today. With doing the forced stuck grenade exhaust bay and running around the drone. And it was 140. Ties the PB. Because I've been trying to get boosted through the console and the exhaust bay, but I've been passing away too much. I'm losing too much health. So I'm just trying to get completions now, to be honest. So I might still do that force mainframe stuck grenade exhaust bay and run around the drone. I might just do that. Aim for like 139 or something. Because when I got the 140, I knew it wasn't it. I didn't even get excited. I'm like, this is not fast enough. I knew it. Which is a good sign, I guess. Yeah, so I mean, it was the first time I realized this level really is kind of a puzzle piece. Right? Like if you do a strat, it's like literally a second or two. I don't know, man. That's Joe Rogan. The Joe Rogan bot. So yeah, man, I think I'm aiming for like 139, honestly. I'm trying to get completions. It's just more fun too. I don't know. Like, I'm not going psycho mode now. Like, I could see myself getting another completion using the exact same strat. And it being like a 139 or something. The 140, it had a fast guard reaction too, though. In the mainframe. It's a pretty ideal run. Thanks, man. Yeah. I mean, I guess not thanks, man, but I know what you mean. Yeah, I've never survived any crouching at the mainframe at the end. I've tried, I don't know, maybe like 20, 30 times, maybe more. I haven't survived any. I just get lit up. I get absolutely just lit up. Come on, let's get this one. Fuck off, man. These wildebeests are amazing too. They're crazy. Africa's a different beast. Africa's just crazy. Like, every one of these animals can just, like, fuck you up, man. Like, I'm fucking lying. That's fucked, man. It's nightmare mode. Please. No, like what? I beg to differ. Yo, that's such a fucking... I did not hit his hand. What's this? Like, what the fuck, man? Oh, man. Too slow. Oh my god. Fucking cheetah. Biting your neck and killing you. What? Like what? Yo, what a play poker. What's up, brother? How are you, man? Go cart digit? Yeah, dude. AI is getting really dumb and dumber. AI is getting way worse. It's not even making any sense. Oh, I think you need to say AI. You need to trade it with the word AI in it, in your response. But I'm not going near that question. I'm not going to retype that question. I mean, you can paste it again if you want, see what AI says, but I'm not going to. I myself, I'm not going to do that. Because yeah. What? Like, what is this? Crazy animal, man. Oh my god, wow, what a response. What the fuck? What the fuck? That's fucked, man. That's so fucked. Alright, give me some minutes. I'll be back. Give me some minutes. I gotta do something. I might change my shirt, I might load the vape again, but we're gonna play. We're gonna play into the evening, into the night, but I gotta do something first. Stomach went into hibernation again. Oh, no way, dude, I'm sorry. Sorry, brother. Sorry to hear that, man. Didn't need a bite today, sounding rumbling. Sorry, dude. Hey everyone, sorry about that. I'm going to sign off. I really apologize. But I can't do this anymore, not today, but I will again soon. I'm sorry if you're waiting here for an hour for me. Okay, anyways. Thanks for being you. I think I'm just gonna sign off.